Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Hello, and welcome to the School of Love, the place where we learn practical tools based on scientific research and our own experiences towards improving ourselves, living life to its fullest, and contributing to the best of our abilities to the world around us. I am Dr. Grajdian, and in my free time, I am doing my best to guide you in building up a life of contentment, joy, and fulfillment while applying lessons learned in school to overcome the difficulties, challenges, and insecurities of the real world. Today's video is part of a new series on the changing world order and its impact on regular citizens like you and me. I have been reading Ray Dalio's book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, published initially in November 2021, and it made me ponder on what it means for regular citizens like you and me that the entire world is undergoing dramatic changes which we cannot influence at all, but which are crucially impacting our own lives and the future. In today's video on the changing world order and its impact on regular citizens like you and me, I share my thoughts on the sense of self and the manner in which the concept and phenomenon of self is changing itself under the pressure on individuals to continuously challenge and reinvent themselves. Enormously long life expectancies, unimaginable less than 4 or 5 decades ago, bring with them particular questions and preoccupations which have a huge influence on the sense of self. So what precisely is happening and what can we as individuals and as a collective do about it? This video explores this question on a personal level. What is self and what is a healthy sense of self? For the most part of history, this idea of self did not exist for the vast majority of the humans, for the vast majority of the populations. People did not get old enough to realize that they are an individual, they are a self, and they also didn't have both the education and the time and the mood to think about the self. So usually humans just followed prescribed trajectories of life. They were born, so we do not decide if we are born and when we are born and to whom we are born. Regardless of this new age, people say this is something completely out of our control, and most of the time children would start very early on to work as soon as they could behave somehow independently and autonomously. The luckier ones would go to school or to some sort of education outside of the family household, but all of them would start very quickly to work. So to be an asset to the family, this is a huge difference to what children are nowadays. So in the past, for the vast majority of history, children were assets. Nowadays, children are actually liabilities, and this is one of the most important reasons why humans have less and less children in this wealthy, so-called post-industrialized, service-based societies. In order to develop a sense of self, in order to ask oneself, who am I? What am I doing in this world? Why have I come? Why will I die? What happens after I die? These are very deep-going questions. For us, they seem natural. For us, they seem something like fundamental. Nowadays, we all ask these questions, but back then, so a couple of decades ago, people didn't live long enough to gain this insight and to gain the emotional and mental maturity to ask themselves these questions. Of course, we have the intellectuals. Of course, we have the upper class, the 0.0001 part of the population who did that. But regular citizens, regular people, the vast majority of the population never got to that point. What is changing nowadays is that by living such long lives and in a world permanently in turmoil around us and being connected all the time to all these events happening around the world, what Marshall McLuhan called the global village. So we are so interconnected to each other. Although this doesn't mean we are deeply, intimately connected to each other. This is a topic for another video, in which I will talk about communication, interhuman communication, and how, in spite of being so connected, always with a smartphone or with a tablet, with a computer connected to the internet, I can get all information I want in real time at any time. Humans are increasingly lonely, but this is a different topic. So what I could talk about now is the concept of self, and the concept, it means this self would lead then to identity, to awareness of being an individual, of being someone who exists. There has been a huge, it is still ongoing debate on what it means to be human, what it means identity, what it means to be aware of one's own position in the world and in time, and of being aware of one's agency and of one's ability to impact the world, to impact history, to impact time. I'm not going into all these existential questions and existential dimensions. It's just that I'm going into the fact that most of us will live long enough to ask ourselves this question: who am I? Who the hell am I? Jordan Peterson mentions this almost, okay, not always, but most of the time in his speeches, where he says, it is the sooner you find out who yourself is, who you are, the better. It's one thing to find it when you're in your teens, mid-20s, mid-30s is already too late. Yeah, and my question is, what happens when you find it in your 50s? When you wake up one day and you ask yourself, who am I? And you are already 55 or 60. And this might happen more often than we think, due to these very long life expectancies, and due to the fact that young people nowadays, younger generation nowadays, my generation included, are becoming later and later in life independent and autonomous. This means parents have longer and longer influence, and they have a say in the lives of their children, who might already be in their 30s and 40s. But if someone pays for your livelihood, if someone gives you pocket money, if someone allows or lets you live in their home, then of course they do have a say in your life. And for parents as well, it's very, well, endearing. And for many of them, is actually a life goal to keep the child, the grown-up child, as long as possible in their own home, in their own immediate surrounding. And this leads actually to the fact that this questioning of one's own self, this questioning of one's own position in the world and in history, happens very late. It will happen anyway. So if one lives long enough, it will happen. It can happen in 70s or 80s. But if up to that point you have lived a life which was determined by others, be it your parents, usually they are the parents, then you'll have a big problem. You'll have a huge identity crisis. And this is how this is going to change. We must understand as grown-ups, as responsible grown-ups, that one of our major duties is to encourage the younger generation, the younger generations, to delve into their own existence, to delve into their own sense of self as soon as possible, so that they start to grasp their own identity as soon as possible, so that they are not confronted with these fundamental questions later on in life, suddenly and for the first time. Too late is too late. Regardless whether you live 100 years, if you ask these questions in your 70s or 80s or 60s or 50s, and you still have decades ahead of you, and you don't know what to do, then of course existential crises occur, and you have no idea how to deal with them, because you've never developed your sense of self. You've never developed your sense of being someone, being an individuality within an ocean of other individualities. So I hope this gives an insight into how the necessity to discover and to develop a sense of self is changing due to this very long life expectancy, and in times of tremendous upheaval, which we are experiencing right now. Whether we like it or not, history is happening. So the best move, I would say, in my opinion, is to move with the history, not to resist it, but to move with it, to enjoy it and to welcome it, and to do the best out of it. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you very soon again. Love and peace to you all.